ex oficial de la Marina Británica. Se desempeñó en el Ministerio de Defensa de su país y como docente de la Escuela de Planificación de Emergencias del Reino Unido. Miembro del Chatham House desde 2005. Su trabajo en dicho lugar involucró la creación de la metodología del Virtual Task Force para la ciberseguridad colaborativa entre entidades financieras. Reteniendo valor en los servicios financieros, colaboración no regulada en ciberseguridad es el tema que nos presenta David Livingstone.
What I really want to talk to you today is what we've done in the United Kingdom, which is trust groups and virtual task forces. These are collaborative, non-regulated mechanisms now being deployed sector-wide, but we started in 2010 with the financial services, the banking virtual task force, and my role as an independent in Chatham House, which is the Royal Institute for International Affairs, was to create the concept of operations and then become the referee to solve issues when companies are working together, particularly in antitrust. So we're talking about non-regulated approaches to cybersecurity at the sector level. The 3 ages of cybersecurity, we've had the system-centric, firewall, antivirus, regular patching, some basic sort of stuff, and you will be safe. And in one stroke, this singular line of defense was actually overtaken by some smart thinking. The second era is all about the data-centric. And this is, if we do the first, systems, and we defend, and also just look after the real bits that matter, then we'll be absolutely fine. And actually, has just been demonstrated, your fat finger or your mistake, you're clicking on a link, and once again, you have got a problem. The third age of cybersecurity is for the people, by the people. We take systems, we take the data approach, but then what we do is we look at knowledge, understanding, awareness, collaboration, sharing about this common threat that we all face. This is the new era of cybersecurity. The trouble is government is too slow. Government's very good at creating law, but when it comes to reaction, of understanding what's going on in cyberspace and so on, and being able to react to people who are not restricted by rules and regulations. They form their teams, they do their attacks, and they disperse in the dark web. They split their profits amongst themselves, and they disappear. We cannot defend everything. So what we have to work out is, in principles of risk management, is how to left shift the risks into prevention and then understand which are the really important parts of our business functionality we want to preserve as core business and so not to affect our company's values. So the sector level collaborative approach, whatever new approach happens, the first bullet, we've got to introduce it at minimal cost. The sector, whichever it is, and let's talk about the insurance sector here in Chile, is seen to be responsible in times of increased pressure on economic growth. If you're seen to be responsible, government and regulators tend to back off because they think, and probably are reassured, that you're doing the right thing. You are taking the initiative. And this means that you are taking charge of the regulation rather than the regulation taking charge of you. And what we're talking about here, there's this effect called deflection, which is if it is more difficult for cyber attackers to try and penetrate Chilean financial systems, they are thinking about their risk and reward. What investment do they make in order to achieve their reward? They do their business planning as well. If Chile is more difficult than other countries, that there is less probability of being pursued in cyberspace and so on, they will go to the other countries in preference to Chile. So at the operational level, we do need to share best practice. It's not the sole remit of a single person or company or an expert, as we just seen. Lots of people have very good ideas, lots of organizations. This is about how we actually share that. So here is a proposal. The Chilean insurance companies, as a sector, takes cyber off the competitive agenda. We can create a platform to collaborate to protect the value of the Chilean insurance sector from cyber threats. That's maintain all of our companies' share prices and our responsibilities to shareholders and all of those kind of things. That working together, we say that we are collectively going to mitigate cyber threats. It operates in a trusted environment, and I will come back to that about how to maintain trust. It's not regulated. And this is a key thing, because in our experience, when you are swapping information about the attack you had last night, and you've lost these email accounts, and you've lost this data and lost this money, and you're trying to share that, if there's a regulator in the room, nobody talks. Because what they're fearing is the regulator will then hand them a penalty notice for being negligent with this data, and so it's totally quiet. But it's essential that the regulator understands that something is happening, that he knows the rules base, and so on, but not in the room, because then there's a free flow of information about what is going on and how the attack happened, and who not blame, but what was at fault, what systemically was at fault. And you've also got to work on antitrust, because you have these companies working together in a closed environment. How do you know that they are not swapping information about prices and all that kind of stuff? You simply need an independent referee approved by the regulator sitting in the room to make sure the agenda stays on cyber. You can involve law enforcement, but only as needed. They don't have to be in the room. And information sharing procedures are underpinned by a very strong privacy agreement. We've actually already done this in Chile in another area of financial services. That's the conceptual design. The virtual task force here is in the blue circle. And these are all the things that we can do. We can prevent, we can protect, we can use law enforcement to disrupt, to pursue, and then, of course, the legal profession to then prosecute. So the UK experience, how we kicked it off. It was the Metropolitan Police, London's police force, that had a cybercrime unit that had a conversation with one of the chief execs of the banks. And the bank was telling the police that they were having real trouble because a single attacker was attacking Royal Bank of Scotland on Monday that was reacting. The same attacker hitting NatWest on Tuesday, Barclays on Wednesday, Lloyd's on Thursday, Santander on Friday. But by the time a week had happened, they changed the attack. So how could essentially banks start to work together to first want to absorb the blow, but then distribute the patch or the mechanism required to prevent a further attack collectively around the other bank. And we got together in Barclays Wealth HQ to do a kick-off meeting. All of the chief execs of the bank, all these black limousines turned up inside this very nice house in Mayfair in London. And within 45 minutes, the concept was sold. And we did this at chief exec level because then imperial orders were then issued down the chain. This is something we will do. All of our organizations get on with it. We thought it better doing it that way than trying to push it from the bottom up, and it worked. So, what we found through practical experience is by left shifting that risk to prevention and deterrence and deflection and all that kind of stuff, we can increase confidence across the sector. We can reduce market uncertainty about what the next... We can't solve it, but we can reduce it, about what the next big cyber attack might be. We can make cyber risks in financial services more insurable. We can always, when you go back to how do you insure against cyber losses and so on. The one good thing you have with a virtual task force type group is that you have a collective voice. And if you want laws to be developed or new regulations and compliances to be developed, you are speaking as a single voice of a task force. You have the balanced and settled view of the insurance sector, of the banking sector, of any sector. Government therefore listens to you an awful lot more seriously. Some golden rules. Okay, so the first one, so here we have just a number of these rules. Key principles. You take cyber off the competitive agenda. Okay, in the United Kingdom, this vital principle that one company using information that is gained across the table in that closed space never uses it as part of its competitive strategy to gain market share. They know that if you break the rule, then you break the task force and you lose all of that collective benefit. It's about establishing trust as well. And what we found in the task forces is that this trust is very much done on a personal level. This is a people thing. So one of the key things is the same people have to go to either the strategic group or the operational group time after time. But it's all about people. And that was probably the second most important rule. We had a very restricted media policy. I think in the end we were only mentioned in the UK media, this was the banking task force we did, only twice. And we thought that was the right approach. And of course, you've got to keep the regulator happy. If the regulators are in the room, you will receive statistics. You will receive anonymized accounts of things that go on, but you will never get names, because once you demand those, then once again, this collapses. And this is now being rolled out across all sectors inside the United Kingdom, not just financial services or insurance and so on, but this is in transportation, health, emergency services, and so on. So this is essentially the proposal. Is this a possible way forward? And I know that the UK model can't be mapped directly onto Chilean legislative frameworks. It needs adaptation. But it is possible to go forward into this new area of the democratization of cybersecurity, to create a Chilean insurance sector virtual task force, which emulates but is adapted from the successful UK model of VTF. Now they're called trust groups. The VTF would work together in an unregulated but trusted environment and will collaborate with, but not be governed by, the regulator, law enforcement and intelligence agencies, and internationally. And I think that's a key thing as well. To mitigate cyber threats by gathering threat information, sharing best practice, and coordinating responses. And I am absolutely certain, if the will is there, then that organization could be brought into being. Thank you very much indeed.